soul is the passenger, so let me take a trip down. Let me take a trip down to you. They say it's such a small world, but often I feel lost and empty. They say it's such a cruel world, but one good heart is plenty.
Welcome to Failure Lab. Oh my God. Give yourselves a better round of applause than that. Welcome to Failure Lab. I'm not used to seeing this many people. I get real nervous. Thank you guys so much for being here. This is our 5-year anniversary. We've been working on this for 6 years. I had a little emo moment putting those numbers together because it's just been this crazy, crazy journey. And I truly believe there's not one of those numbers that would be up there without the city of Grand Rapids and at least half of the people in this room. So thank you guys so much for supporting us. Seriously. There's a bunch of alumni here, and thank you guys, and we're really excited to be in Fountain Street Church. If you get a chance, you wouldn't believe the people who have spoken here in this room. It's incredible. We're really lucky to have this spot. We're about to do this, you guys. Yeah, we have an awesome lineup for you. We have some amazing storytellers, some amazing musicians. But the whole point of tonight is really to push back on the fear and the stigma and the isolation around failure. And I don't know if any of you guys have noticed, but we're really living in some pretty strange times. No politics in here. This is a neutral zone. But there is so much just fear and anger and so much shit going on. And we really hope that... Sorry, Jesus? Don't watch us drinking in the back. I'm so sorry. But truly, it's just a weird time, and we hope that tonight can be a moment for all of us to kind of have some honest conversations and have some empathy and understand a little bit of our backstory and maybe come to a point where we're just listening and talking. We've got 6 incredible storytellers. Each one has faced severe failure, and each one has gotten back up to rise to new successes. What's very different about this format, if you didn't know, is that they're not here to share their lessons or their morals or what they're doing now. They're literally going to come out here and just give you a public confession, and they're not going to wrap it up. And this, if you didn't know that and you came, you might be like, what the hell is going on? I promise, I hope it's going to be okay for you. But the whole point is after they speak, you're invited into the story. So we encourage you to pull out your phone and jump on whatever social media you're into. If you do that, we don't do Snapchat. We don't do that here. But we're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and so you can tweet at us or hit us up at our handle as Failure Lab at most things, and just share your thoughts or your lessons or what the story meant to you or what you think about your own life. So you're really invited in, and we're crowdsourcing that, and that's becoming part of the growing conversation that we really hope is pushing back on kind of this fear and stigma that's going on around failure. During the show, you'll see we have their Instagram handle. So the speakers and the entertainers, if you're on Instagram, just hit them up or tell them what you're thinking, or tell them you like what they're doing. If you have any negative feedback, just save it and leave and just don't ever share it. That would be so awesome. Jordan will yell at me if I don't say this. This is the Wi-Fi network password. FSC Public. If you don't have service like Jordan has AT&T, I don't know why you would do that. But if you do, the password is Fountain Street Church. Also, before and after each story, we're going to have some sweet entertainment. So you can just sit back, settle in, get ready for just a really, really cool night. or maybe you've got your tissues for your tears. It's going to be really, really sweet. And also, it can be a little strange at the end of each story because this is very provocative. No one in the world is doing this. So please give each storyteller a huge round of applause after each story because it takes a ton of courage to do this. It is not easy. But this really is not about failure. It's really about courage and resiliency. And that's the message that these people are all sending by coming out here. They went through something and they got back up. I think I covered all my bases. I got to get the hell out of here. The biggest event we ever had was 600 people, and there's 1,200 of you. So thank you so much. I was going to tell you guys to clap, so you totally stole my thunder. If you could give everyone backstage a huge round of applause, we're going to begin. Thank you.
We are the West Michigan Gay Men's Chorus. And my name is R.T. Williams, and I'm the artistic director of the chorus, and it is my privilege to stand in front of them and wave my arms week after week. And just wanted you to know that tomorrow night is our spring concert. Jordan said we could say this. It is our spring concert. We're going to be at Wealthy Street Theater. You're all invited. And so we'll just really pack the place and bend the walls and all that stuff if everybody shows up. So tomorrow evening, the doors open at 6 o'clock for hors d'oeuvres and wine. And then we start singing about 7:30 is what we're going to do. And we're also going to have a silent auction because it's also our fundraiser. So any of you that want to come, please come. We'd love to have you there and just scream real loud, okay, while we're done. What we're going to sing for you tonight, our mission statement is changing lives in our community one voice at a time. And what we're going to sing tonight is our theme song. We end every rehearsal with it. We end every concert with it. And it's called Why We Sing. A sound of hope, a sound of peace, a sound that celebrates and speaks what we believe.
A sound of love, a sound so strong. It's amazing what is given when we share a song. This is why we sing, why we lift our voice, why we stand as one in harmony. This is why we sing, why we lift our voice.
Good evening. I came to the United States in 1970 from Vietnam when I was just 5 years old. In that year, my mom married an American serviceman there, not necessarily because she loved him, but also so she could take me to the United States, to give me a chance at life. And recognize I didn't say a chance at a life, I said a chance at life, to live another day. The war was escalating at the time and it was getting more dangerous, so my mom makes this decision to take me to this place called the United States of America. But in making that decision, she simultaneously makes the decision to leave her whole family behind. And that pained her a great deal, because if you know anything about Vietnamese culture, you know this: family means everything. You're nothing without your family. So she has to leave her mom and dad, 5 brothers and sisters, many aunts, many uncles, many cousins behind. And again, that pained her a great deal. But she felt this compelling need to take her only son to a safer place. To offset some of the pain that she had of leaving her family behind and to give me some hope, actually to give us both hope as we're flying from Vietnam to the United States, my mom tries to teach me some things that she had learned about the United States as she was growing up. She tried to teach me some concepts embedded in words that I think many, if not all of us, are familiar with. Words that sound like these: we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by the creators with certain inalienable rights, that among those rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And many historians note that when Jefferson penned the words pursuit of happiness, in Jeffersonian times, it meant the pursuit of community happiness, not individual happiness the way we frame it today. So she tried to teach me those concepts embedded in those great famous words. She also tried to teach me the place we're going, called the United States of America, was one of very few places across the globe where you could come with nothing except for the shirt on your back, but end up with something if you worked hard enough. She left out the part about it's good to know people too. So she tries to teach me these things as we fly and log those miles across the oceans to give us hope. But as soon as we land into LAX, Los Angeles International Airport, step off that plane, walk in that first building, into that first corridor, people there began throwing things at me and my mom. And these were not good things. They would spit on us as we walked by. They would yell horrible words at us as we passed by. I didn't understand English at the time, but I knew these were not good words by the way people were yelling them. I remember my mom putting her arms around me, all 4'11", 95 pounds of this young Vietnamese woman, trying to protect her only son from the things that people were throwing at us. And as we'd walk along the corridor, as the pelting would become harder and harder, my mom would instinctively squeeze tighter and tighter. And sometimes she would squeeze so tightly it would hurt. On those occasions, I'd look up, I'd want to say something to my mom, but I never did. Because every time I looked up, all I saw was tears streaming down her face. And even as a little 5-year-old, I knew I should be silent at the time. My mom thought she had brought us to a better place. And along many dimensions, the place called the United States is a much better place than we were coming from. But for a little 5-year-old who was being spat on and having things thrown at, it didn't seem like a better place at that time. We weren't treated very well when we first arrived. We were the outsiders. We didn't speak English. My mom barely spoke English. I didn't speak English at all. People didn't want to be in the war, and they took out their hatred of the war on us, people they did not even know. I grew up in some tough neighborhoods around Los Angeles, Compton, Long Beach, and Bellflower. I'd often get bloodied and beaten in fights I got into at school. You know, as I think back on those days, it hurt, but as I think back, it probably hurt my mom even more. Imagine those of you who have children sending your kid off to school. And for many of us in this room who have children to send our kids off to school, there's no thought, there's no wonder about what condition they'll arrive at home in the afternoon. But imagine you have the sole responsibility of protecting, caring for a child. And when you send the child off to school, you don't know how bloody he will be when he comes home in the afternoon. Imagine living every single day like that. The guy that my mom married, my stepfather, I was never really close to him. It's hard to get close to someone who beat you when you were a minute late for dinner, who took a belt to you when you didn't finish your dinner. It's hard to get close to someone like that. But my stepfather, he got really close to my little sister. In 1984, my stepfather was convicted of raping my little sister, his own daughter. And because of that and the way she was treated by many people as a biracial child in school, half white, half Vietnamese, my sister ran away from home with a friend of hers in the summer of 1985. 1 month after my sister runs away, my mom gets a phone call from a detective in the King County Sheriff's Department, Seattle, Washington. The detective says to my mom in so many words, he says, "Mrs. Robbins, we found the other girl that your daughter ran away with. But that other girl had been sexually assaulted and bludgeoned to death." And as soon as he says that, my mom frantically asks, "What about my daughter? What about Diane? What do you know about her?" And all the detective could say was, "We don't know. There's no trace of your daughter. We don't know. There's no evidence of your daughter. We don't know. There's no leads to follow. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know." All he could say over and over is, "We don't know." That was 1985. It's 2017 now, and we still don't know. How many of you have ever heard of a guy by the name of Gary Ridgway? If you don't know him by that name, you might also know him as the Green River Killer, who murdered more than 100 young women in the Green River area of Seattle, Washington in the 80s and 90s. My sister's believed to be one of his many victims. If you go online and Google my sister's name, Diane Robbins, you'll go to a link that takes you to the Center for Missing and Exploited Children. There you can read about her case file. You'll see 2 pictures of her. The latest one that we had when she was 13 years old, and one of what she might look like today, computer generated. As you might imagine, after that phone call, life isn't so great for my mom and me, but it's especially bad for my mom, because you're not supposed to outlive your children, are you? My mom goes into this deep depression. She's already faced a lot of social pain that comes from being treated like an outsider, and now she has this. Not many happy days in her life after that phone call. But there came a time when she was happy, at least temporarily. It came in the summer of 91. That's when I get married to my wife, Donna, right here out in Michigan. My mom flies out for this week-long wedding celebration, and for a week, it's the happiest I've seen my mom since that phone call. She was laughing at people's jokes. She was hugging others. It brought great joy to my heart to see her that way. But as you and I know, all good things must come to an end, right? The wedding celebration ends. My mom flies back home to Washington State, where she's living at the time, goes back into depression. Just a few months later, in the fall of 91, I began graduate school at Michigan State University. I would talk with my mom every week on the phone. We would share with each other the week's events. On this particular phone call in late October 91, we're talking and we're sharing. And as we're about to close, before we hang it, my mom says to me, she says, "Long," my Vietnamese name, "Long. You have Donna to take care of you now," she says, and we hang up. A week later, I get a phone call from Washington State. When I pick it up, I expect it to be my mom. But when I pick it up and hear who's on the other end of the line, it's not my mom. It's a detective from the Benton County Sheriff's Department where my mom was living. And in so many words, the detective says to me, he says, "Mr. Robbins, we have some unfortunate news. We just found your mom, and she was hanging in her shower." A week after my mom says to me, "Long, you have Donna to take care of you now," my mom takes her own life. Up until the point of my mom's suicide, I hated being Asian. I hated what I looked like. I hated the people I came from. I hated being Asian. Why? Because over the course of my lifetime growing up, I heard so many bad things said about Vietnamese and Asian people. I saw so many bad things happen to Asian and Vietnamese people that my own brain absorbed those messages and created a negative mental model of Vietnamese people. I didn't want to be me. I didn't like me. In the world of race studies, we call that internalized racial oppression. When you start to hate the people you come from because you believe all the bad things told about the people you come from. The gender equivalent of that is when we use media messages to tell young girls and women what they're supposed to look like. And when some can't achieve that look, can't wear that right dress size, that right jean size, don't have the right skin tone or hair texture, when they can't achieve that unachievable look, they start to hate who they are, and some go on to do some horrible things to themselves. Do not underestimate the power of words and messages to tear people down. But also do not underestimate the power of words of messages to lift people up. If there's anything that was good that came out of my mom's suicide, it may be this. It broke me out of the funk of hating who I was. It reminded me of my mom and what she had done for me, to be proud of our heritage and our culture. A lot of this work that I do professionally is called diversity and inclusion. And I tell people the work of diversity and inclusion is fundamentally about caring for other people. That's what diversity and inclusion is all about. And the true measure of whether you're a caring person is not how well you care for your friends and your homies, but how well you care for strangers and outsiders. The cool part about that is this: the more you care for strangers and outsiders, the more friends and homies you get. Right? So on this Mother's Day weekend, I share with you my story, but when you hear my story, you also hear my mom's story. Because in me is my mom. Without my mom, I wouldn't be here. And I want to leave you the essence, the spirit of my mom, in some words that my mom shared with me. When I was growing up, she would say this Chinese proverb to me over and over. She would say, "Long, tall trees face strong winds." Imagine a little Vietnamese woman telling a little child, "Tall trees face strong winds," right? Never really knew what she meant when I was growing up. Tall trees face strong winds, what's that supposed to mean? But as I matured, as I grew, I figured it out. What she was telling me was this: Long, go stand tall against the strong winds of injustice. Because when you stand tall, you're protecting somebody else. So my challenge to you is to hear the words of my mom and go out and stand tall against the strong winds of injustice. But before you take that challenge, remember this: injustice at times is powerful. The winds will be strong, they will be fierce, they will be relentless. When you stand tall, when you take that challenge to stand tall, you will get tired. You will get very tired, and at times you will want to quit. But in those times when you're weary and you're tired and you want to quit, remember this: there are other tall trees standing with you. You may not see them, but they are there. And one of them is me. Thank you for your time.
It's like watching the night sky or a beautiful sunrise. There's so much they hold, and just like them night skies, I see that you come so far to be right where you are. How old is your soul? And I won't give up on us, even if the skies get rough. I'm giving you all my love. I'm still looking up. And when you needed your space to do some navigating, I'll be here patiently waiting to see what you find. 'Cause even the stars, they burn. Some even fall to the earth. We've got a lot to learn, and God knows we're worth it. Oh, I won't give up. I don't wanna be someone who walks away so easily. I'm here to stay and make the difference that I can make. Our differences, they do a lot to teach us how to use the tools and gifts we got. Yeah, we got a lot at stake. And in the end, you're still my friend. At least we did intend for us to work. We didn't break, we didn't burn. We had to learn how to bend without the world caving in. I had to learn what I got, what I'm not, and who I am. And I won't give up on us, even if the skies get rough. I'm giving you all my love. I'm still looking up. I'm still looking up. I won't give up on us, even if the skies get rough. I'm giving you all my love. I'm still looking up. I'm still looking up.
Oh my God. You know I need a selfie. Well, hello. Let's get it. Imagine you're 14 years old, vibrant, enthusiastic, motivated, and inspired by everything in life, except the fact that your entire family is sporting a jerry curl in the mid-90s. Thanks, Mom. Thanks a lot. Happy Mother's Day to you. You've been involved in everything. You've excelled in school, and you've been told since the 3rd grade that you were special and destined for greatness. And even when you didn't believe that, the world did, because you were afforded extraordinary opportunities. So the people around you had great hopes for your future. After all, perception is reality. Or is it? See, my life has actually been an intricate space where the world has been my oyster. But that oyster has housed a series of unfortunate events that would either make or break me over time. And all along the way, I would need to redefine failure for myself in many, many moments. And what I found was that the question of who's failing who or what is failure really would creep up in the crevices of my mind often. You see, I always had a wisdom beyond my youth of sorts, and I tended to will my way through the thick of things, unaware that when you just keep swimming, the waters can get deeper and darker out of the blue. Much like being in 8th grade at Southeast Academic Center and returning to school as a different person than the day I was before. I vividly remember coming home from school one day and turning the news to Channel 13 and seeing a car just like ours. It was a sky blue Cadillac DeVille with a white rag top. The only difference was there were 2 shotguns laying on the back of the trunk. And then the phone rang. And my mother burst into tears immediately. My father had been shot 5 times. She whisked us off as fast as she could with all of her might, and she carried 4 little brown girls with all of the muster that her mommy arms could handle, and she whisked us off to St. Mary's Hospital in a flash. When we arrived, there were tubes and blood and tears everywhere, amidst words like, "Ma'am, if we remove the bullet that's lodged in his heart, he would have died instantly." And just like that, out of the blue, the world as I had known it would never be the same. That early on in my life, I had a decision to make. I had to decide if I was going to be the victim or if I was going to be the victor. I had to decide if this was the beginning or was this the end. I had to decide that I was going to do my homework without ever having to be asked or prompted, even if it meant studying for countless nights by candlelight, because Daddy was doing time for his crime and the bills were mounting on Mom. I have never seen strength like that. I had to decide that being full was a state of mind, and that those were the times when we only had eggs and cheese bread sprinkled with a little bit of sugar on top to eat. Government cheese was my favorite. You know, it's funny because they say that whom much is given, to whom much is given, much is required. And this means that you may find yourself maneuvering your way through moments of non-fulfillment, defeat, foundering, and even collapse at various moments in your journey. You see, I can distinctly remember the first semester of undergrad at Boston College. I had graduated from GRPS with accolades. I received many awards, competition winnings, and I had a cumulative GPA of a 3.8. Man, I was on fire. And even though I had never heard of a Jesuit ever in my life, okay, I just knew that I was going to link up with those other students from across the nation, and I was going to take my curriculum by the throat. I was a local bright shining star, right? I was a local celebrity. So clearly, I was ready to stomp with the big dogs, you know. The big dogs who have been studying Greek mythology since 3rd grade. The big dogs, the students who came from a upper crust lineage where privilege is so commonplace that it is unrecognizable by its name. So yeah, I bombed first semester. And second semester, I came up a little, but you know, it was a struggle. It was also new to me. I mean, everything. The people, the massive environment with the influx of different cultures, teaching styles, the food, drinking soda. What the heck is soda? The pressure. Growing up in the Black Hills, in the heart of the Midwest, I mean, one doesn't get very much exposure to Tiffany's jewelry, clam chowder, and peacoats. But again, decisions have to be made, and failure must be redefined unceasingly. What do you do when you don't meet a desirable or intended objective and you're not sure who's failing who? Is it your fault that you didn't make the grade? Or did the system fail you for not adequately preparing you to compete intellectually with other students who received a better education and had access to a plethora of resources that rarely reached the hood? Or perhaps Boston College failed me because they accepted me, even though I scored a measly 19 on the ACT. I've always been a poor test taker. And let's not even talk about Boston College Law School. I was afforded the opportunity to enter into one of the top institutions in the country for my Juris Doctorate. And I wept my entire way through for 3 years with negative self-talk and a conviction that I didn't belong. When I failed the Illinois bar exam, not once, but twice, I thought, surely, my life is over. By this point, I'm thinking I decided wrong, and failure is as failure does. And Finding Nemo, you know what? That was a stupid movie. That was a stupid movie. And you know what? I was stupid for letting Dory, a fish, inspire me the way that Dory did. Fast forward to graduating from law school. I made some choices. Again, accept defeat, Letitia, or acknowledge that the most natural diamonds are formed at high temperatures and pressure at depths to 87 to 118 miles deep into the Earth's mantle. That is how diamonds are made. I graduated with a decent GPA and a distinction award for having achieved my goals under extraordinary circumstances. I'm exposed, I'm cultured, I'm living in the South Loop in Chicago. I'm gracing the front page of magazines, talking about women who make more money than the men that they date. Woo! Those were the days. And just like that, I willed my way through the thick of things. I came, I saw, I conquered. But what does water do? Water gets deeper, it gets darker, and it happens out of the blue. The partners at the firm, they were not as thrilled about all of the attention I was getting outside of the workplace. So my days as a senior paralegal started to decrease as the scrutiny increased. And after years of giving my heart and soul to this labor and employment firm, I was terminated. And just like that, my good life, my $80,000 good life on the lakefront was over. I exhausted my entire savings to avoid having to move back to Grand Rapids. How could I, me, the first of 6 children, now 6 children, to get a formal education from a prestigious institution, me, the smart one, me, the successful one, me, the one voted most likely to succeed, how could I lose it all in the blink of an eye? I was down to nothing. My car had been towed. There were eviction notices slipped under my door. I was robbing Peter to pay Paul, buying the best groceries from Trader Joe's and Whole Foods with my food stamps, shopping at thrift stores, and ironing those clothes to keep up the appearance of the good life. I've always been good at that. I made broken look beautiful. I made strong look invincible. It became part of my hustle. After a failed relationship with a plot twist that I thought only happened in the movies, I had a nervous breakdown and I jumped out of a moving car. It wasn't until I heard my late grandmother say, "Baby, you can always come home," that I packed up everything in my lakefront apartment and I accepted my fate. My American dream had become a beautiful nightmare. And even though my hometown of Grand Rapids has been in what I often refer to as a grand renaissance, I had no clue that it would be so difficult to obtain a seat at the table in a city within a city. Assuming that I was GR's golden child, I knew in the recesses of my mind that I would get a good paying job fairly quickly. I was wrong. For the next year, I lived in an upstairs bedroom in my sister's house in the corner of Eastern and Sherman. I did makeup for people in her attic to make money to get by. In the process, I met a guy. I fell way too hard. I fell way too fast. And I got pregnant within 4 months of even knowing his first name. I was completely disappointed. I let everybody down, including myself. Eventually, we were all evicted from the apartment on Sherman Street, and I had completely given up on giving birth to these dreams in my belly, and I focused on trying to stay sane for my seed. Eventually, I recognized and accepted that I was pregnant. I was on cash assistance. I was taking these mandatory classes on the West Side, learning how to do a resume every day, just to get by. So things were looking up because finally, eventually, I got an apartment at a live workspace unit in a brand new development in 2011 downtown. And things were looking up. or so I thought. I had a place to call home. I had a beat-up Toyota Camry with a Boston College Law School sticker in the back. And the editor of a local publication called Women's Lifestyle Magazine saw something in me. Her infectious personality convinced me that even broken crayons can still color. And so she gave me this Mama V. She gave me a key to her heart and a key to her office. And I had no idea at the time that this would become my place of refuge, as I would later suffer trauma, abuse, and some of the greatest losses in my life. I had a place to call home. I was broke, I was lost, I was pregnant, I was confused. I wept uncontrollably at her kindness. And one day, while returning back to the office to work on an article, I left to go to a doctor's appointment for my child. And when I came back, my vehicle had been towed. Thank you, City of Grand Rapids. My beater was auctioned and sold for unpaid parking tickets. I'm 8 months pregnant, I have no money, and nowhere to go. I had a decision to make. What was life going to look like for me moving forward? Or was forward just a figment of my once vivid imagination? So Caius was born, and Caius has come a long way. Hi, Caius. I know he out there somewhere. He changed, I changed, but my quest for a title and a good-paying position in GR did not. I was on a mission for notoriety and praise. I wanted a good-paying position in GR. And all of that was the opposite of ordained failure. And because I'm such a genius, I decided to quit my low-paying job that I loved in housing advocacy for a job that didn't pay at all. I wanted to make the haves accept me and invite me to the table. I was going to make them do it, not realizing that all along, while serving, I had been sitting in a loaner seat on borrowed time. I was blinded by vanity and a delusion of grandeur. Till this day, after countless interviews for many jobs that some of you probably now hold, yeah, I was forced into avid entrepreneurship. And it hasn't been easy by any stretch of the imagination. It seems that the rain has been unceasing. And despite my best efforts to run on and see what the end is gonna be, I keep running in place. How does one accept that you're good enough to work as staff or good enough to be a committee member, but never good enough to be given the rights and the responsibilities of executive leadership? What does that do to your mind? I began to question myself a great deal. Who do you think you are? Life at home slowly began to deteriorate. I was in the midst of an awful parenting court battle for parenting time. My child's behavior at school was on a steady decline. And the YMCA told me that I could no longer return him because I had fell $400 behind on tuition costs. Though I had killed myself to make sure my son could stay in school. My child would stay at home with me for 6 months until he could begin a Great Start for Readiness program. I had fallen so behind on my bills, my credit score plummeted, and the bills were mounting up. The pain and the disappointment a mother feels holding her baby on a frigid winter night in Michigan can break you to the core. It took 3 blankets for me to get him to sleep. I had come undone. Being beautifully transparent as I close, things have become so hard for me in the last 2 years that I literally have to make a decision every morning that I rise to sink or to swim. And even though I have never felt more hopeless, more ashamed, more empty, more flawed in my life, I thank God and the angels encamped around me for the preservation of my mind. Because you see, it is in the mind that gives credence to failure in the first place. Empty pockets never held anyone back. Only empty heads and empty hearts can do that. As I stand here today, I have never been more uncertain, confident, broken, redeemed, exhausted, willing, bruised, loved, dismayed, or as hopeful as I am at this very moment. So I have a decision to make. And John Green said, what is the point of being alive if you don't even try to do something remarkable? Tonight I have a decision to make, y'all. Knowing and believing that when it is all finished, you will discover that it was never really random. I ask you, if you were me, what would you do?
Saw this lady from across the room, hoping that she noticed me looking smooth. Had to be the finest thing that I've ever seen. Someone pinched me cause I think that I'm in a dream. Soft lips, bright eyes, thick thighs, sexy. This situation's going through my mind. High heels, black dress, long hair, smells so fresh. Gotta get over there, cause this girl's like a song and got me singing all night long. And baby, what's your name? I'm not playing. Wanna be with you. Gotta be with you. Gotta be with you. I need a lady that's so real, yeah. She's by my side when things don't feel right. 'Cause girl, I know that you're beautiful, yeah. But need a lady that can be my wife. Soft lips, bright eyes, thick thighs, sexy hips. Situations going through my mind. High heels, black dress, long hair, smells so fresh. Gotta get over there, cause this girl's like a song and got me singing all night long. And baby, what's your name? I'm not playing games. Wanna be with you. Gotta be with you. Gotta be with you. Could you be the one for me? Cupid, please don't ignore me, yeah. Could you be the one for me, baby? And whoa, yeah. Yo, hold up, y'all. Do me a favor real quick. Can I get some snaps? Gotta be with you. Where them snaps? There they are. Come on now. Yeah. All right, I need y'all to sing for me right quick. Ready for this? Okay. We need church. Come on. You sing. There it is. Come on. You. Who's singing? Yeah, come on. Sing you, yeah. You, yeah. Sing you. Oh, come on. Cause this girl's like a song and got me singing all night long. And baby, what's your name? Ooh, baby, not playing games, yeah. Gotta be with you. Gotta be with you. Gotta be, yeah. Oh, yeah. Gotta be with you. And you gotta be. Hey, thanks so much, y'all. Keep it soulful. My name is Trey Simon.
Hello.
can hear me. So I have a story for you, and this is a story that I'm going to kind of use a timeline, and I use also this analogy of my life being like a warehouse, and in this expanding, always expanding warehouse, I have little boxes, and kind of like spring cleaning. It is time to do some of that spring cleaning, and when I care about something, I'm focused and driven, but sometimes I have the tendency to procrastinate. So that warehouse, the life, has a magical way to say, time to do it now, and stop procrastinating. So this story is about 10 years old, and it was one of those magical moments where I go into my warehouse and I find multiple boxes opened. And so this box has my business, that suddenly I have debt, and a lot of stuff was going on, and suddenly I didn't have that energy. My creative side was kind of just not flowing. It was not making me happy. And so for me, dance is it's not a hobby. It's not what I do as a job. For me, dance is who I am. So the fact that suddenly I was not feeling joyful doing my thing was just not good. So I have this box going on. It's open, and I have to reflect on what to do and try to be a grown-up, thinking there are bills that are piling, and so that. And on the other side, because I'm always doing monkey business and jumping and doing all kinds of crazy things, I already had a knee surgery back in '91, so I'm kind of like a Terminator. And so surprise, after overdoing and jumping and doing all kinds of monkey businesses, I messed up my knee yet again. And I go see the doctor, and he tells me that I need surgery again in the same knee, which was okay, but I didn't have insurance, and bills were piling. So then we have this other box of the body is not happy, the body needs help, and the whole holistic concept of the body and the mind is my thing. So box number one, business going on, debt. Box number two, knee issues. Another box with no insurance. And so I need to have this surgery by yesterday, because the doctor said, you already had this thing going, and if you don't take care of it, basically you're going down. So not fun, because in addition, at the time, I had a show going on at Sanchez, what used to be Messe. And so I have a contract, and I'm very into, I have to fulfill my commitments and all that. So show going on, no insurance, all those boxes are opened. I need this surgery, debt is growing, I'm not happy, and life was happening. So the warehouse was a mess. Spring cleaning needed to happen, and I needed to make a decision quickly. And as a dancer, I'm used to experimenting and exploring. And out of those explorations, there are things that work out. There are things that turn into something fun, something good. But in general, some of those explorations lead to failure. So I thought, I'm used to this, it's not a big deal, moving on. But I think that magical moment and what happened is, suddenly I found myself in a different country with no support network, trying to understand paperwork, of course in a different language that was not my own. And so yeah, the boxes were opened, and my warehouse was dusty and messy, and I needed to figure something out super quick. So it was one of those reflection moments, and where I started to question course, where do I go, who I am, can I continue dancing or not? So anyway, magically, I did have the surgery, and so things were kind of going in the right direction. But my actually amazing doctor decided to, as he was digging in, he was going to replace or fix my meniscus in addition to the ligaments. So translation, good news, I'm fixed, but now my recovery time extended from 4 weeks to 3 months. And so he said, you just take it easy, lay down, rest, be off your feet. Right. If I don't dance, if I don't teach, if I don't move, if I don't perform, this box with my debt will continue to grow. In fact, it's growing. This whole concept about, insurance and with a pre-existing condition. Something happened to my mic. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. I'll just speak up louder. And so this whole thing about money, and I'm such an Aquarian airhead that being grounded is a little difficult for me. Can you tell? So in addition to all these wonderful things, and the fact that my doctor is telling me that I needed to rest and stay off my feet a little extra, that meant for me to find replacements for my show, someone to teach for me, and I had one positive thing going for me at the time, that I had a new relationship. And so the last box from the warehouse opened, and this box turned out that that amazing lover decided to say goodbye and basically just left. So I have debt, surgery, I'm in a wheelchair. I mean, obviously, the world is falling on my shoulders. And it was a moment where I thought, my students come to me to be happy. My students come to me to find joy. I'm suddenly looking at myself in the mirror, thinking, where is the joy? What is my foundation? And trying to figure out my future, and in a way that is really unknown. I had a brace that went all the way to here from my ankle, and I wasn't sure if I was going to continue jumping, running. I'm in a wheelchair and teaching salsa dancing out of my wheelchair. And so I think the moment where I actually did fail myself is where I didn't feel that I was honest anymore by teaching classes and telling everybody to be positive and being, I don't know, looking always for another answer, for another door to open. And through the period of my recovery, the physical recovery, my emotions, my psychic just went down to a degree that in daily basis, every minute of my days was invested on how to end my life. And I just didn't want to be around anymore. I didn't think it was worth it, because for me, dance is my everything. And if I couldn't dance, I think this is it. The day that I no longer can dance is the day that I think I'm done. And so I processed that. And it was a conversation when I was fully convinced. And that was it. And I figured, what's left? My focus was basically, how do I end this?
There is something to be said about growing up in a space and a place where every bit of success looks like you. Of course, I'm talking about the majestic, the magical, the miraculous, God's country, Detroit. Talking about that place where, as the youngest of 9, growing up in a very structured household, there was a certain advantage that I didn't know that I had. 4 brothers, 4 sisters. Being in a space and a place in which you could look around and recognize that you had the power, the ability to do anything that you put your mind to because you saw it with your own 2 eyes. Nothing was impossible. I had that advantage. I had the opportunity to grow up wanting to be Coleman Young. I wanted to be the mayor of Detroit because Coleman represented justice and Coleman represented righteousness. Something to be said about growing up in a space and a place where every bit of success looks like you. I had the opportunity, of course, to have that experience. But then it was time for college. Fast forward to Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan. I went from being part of the majority to part of the minority. But I got through. It wasn't that far from Detroit, so it was all good. And that was the place that I met this woman who Levi Stubbs and the Four Tops actually sang about her back in 1973. Went something like, "Ain't no woman like the one I got." To make her happy doesn't take a lot. Sew together like a hand in glove, ain't no woman like the one I love. Met that woman, and next thing I know, I'm talking about moving to where? Grand Rapids. Excuse me? But I did it. I felt like Jed Clampett and Beverly Hillbillies. We're going to leave home and we're going to head to a better place. So I moved up to Grand Rapids. And quickly realized that I was not in Detroit anymore. But I moved to a place and a space in which it wasn't necessarily the same like it was in Detroit, of being in a place and a space where everywhere I looked, I saw success that looked like me, and yet I felt the great possibility of being able to have success. And so I moved here and got married and worked a job, and it was right around 1996. And something happened right around 1998. I got bit by this bug called the entrepreneurship bug. That joker kept biting me. And I said, I'm going to go into business. Why? Because it was 1999, and everybody was talking about Y2K, a new millennium, the new beginning. So I got caught up. I said, I'm going to get into business. Was able to secure a degree from Oakland University in communications. That's right. And I said, I'm going to put this degree to good use. So I started a company in 2000 called E.E. Milestone and Associates. And cats used to always ask me, hey man, are you a fan of E.E. Cummings? Is that where that comes from? Right? I said, no, actually, This is all about my family. EE stood for my twins, Eric and Erica. Miles stood for my youngest boy. And I saved the best for last. Stone was my wife, Jessie. She was my rock. EE Milestone. So I figured, look, I got the word on the string, about to make this happen. I got a cool name, a great conversation starter. And so I went and I took a $500 draw from my Visa credit card. I got some credit at Dell Computers. I got me a computer. I ordered some business cards, some letterhead, some envelopes. I got registered with the state. I got my tax ID number. I was in business. Started the business in my home. Just one problem. You know, the children would go to school in the morning, and the house would be quiet. But eventually, guess what? They came home. And the flow just wasn't working too well, and so I couldn't do the home thing anymore. I was in business. I was public relations and marketing, and ethnic marketing in particular. So I said, I got to make another investment. I got to have an office. So I went over to the East Building, over in East Town. Got me a little suite. Now I was really ready to rock and roll. Now, before I went into business, there was this thing that I was used to, pretty accustomed to on a regular basis. It's called a paycheck. And all of a sudden, that wasn't as consistent as it used to be. And I happen to have a wife, and I happen to have 3 children. Now, my mama and daddy did a wonderful job I still wonder how they raised 9 of us, and we never missed a meal. But I was kind of stumped over how the heck am I supposed to do this? I got to feed 3 children and my wife, and she's working. But when I struck out for business, I thought to myself, I need to make this much. Then we'll be fine. I need to make this much. We'll be fine. I need to go and get this client and that client, and there's something about making cold calls, and yet I was encouraged because I was in Grand Rapids, and this is where small business and Grand Rapids are synonymous. This wasn't making any sense, nor was it making any dollars. But I kept pushing. And it kept getting harder and harder. Because I'd made that conscious decision that I was going to be successful in business no matter what. Because I grew up in a space and a place in which everywhere I looked, success looked just like me. So I wasn't accustomed to anything resembling failure. So the year went on, and the stress level increased, and through it all, I had my rock, my wife, who was about as steady as one can be, but didn't necessarily make up for the fact that I was struggling because I wasn't able to fully engage around the economic side of things for the family. Humbling, to say the least. As well as an opportunity to learn a lot more about myself than I ever imagined. There's something to be said about having your mind set and being so determined and not letting anything get in the way of trying to grasp and hold and embrace success. And first thing is you get that vision, that idea of what it's going to be, because there were examples of success in Grand Rapids. So I knew what it looked like, coupled with my upbringing, but there was that disconnect because I just could not grab it. Couldn't get it. I had never, ever failed in anything. And here I was with a wife and 3 children. Humbling, to say the least. But we live in a city that is full of opportunity. A city that could benefit immensely if there was a way to occupy it with more success in different tones and hues, colors. So that the young people in our city could perhaps grow up and have the same thought and experiences that I had, which is to be able to say as a child, man, I'm growing up in a space and a place in which every bit of success looks like me. Success is elusive. Success is addictive. But failure, man, failure. I stayed in my business, made it to 2001. The whole new beginnings thing had worn off. Guess what? The world didn't end. Y2K ended up being a bunch of hype. And so in many ways, it was a new beginning for me. It was the beginning of experiencing something I had never experienced before at that degree. There's something, my brothers and sisters, to be said about growing up in a space and a place in which every bit of success looks like you.
promised land, soil the soft as mama's hands, running water, standing still, endless fields of daffodils and chamomile, rice on the black beans, walked in the apple with cracked screams and told prophetic stories of freedom, found warmth in a black queen for when I get cold like Nat King, I'm doing the dad thing. I speak of wondrous, unfamiliar lessons from childhood, make you remember how to smile good. I'm pre-currency, post-language, anti-label, pro-famous, I'm Broadway Joe Namath. Kanye's best prodigy. He ain't signed me, but he proud of me. I got some ideas that you gotta see. Make a bid with Shorty and they ship it like the Odyssey. They never seen a rapper practice modesty. I never practice, I only perform. I don't even warn. I won't be reborn. I speak to God in public. He keep my rhymes and couplets. He think the new shit jam. I think we're mutual fans. I used to dance in Michael. I used to dance in high school. I used to pass out music. I still pass out music. The people's chant must be everything the people can be. I'm getting artsy fartsy, house full of some Hebrew grammars. You must have missed the come up. I must be all I can be. Call me Mr. Mufasa. I had to master stampedes. I made it through. And everything I gave to you, I gave you. You got it, it's coming. So are you ready?
Thank you. What's up? Thank you. So we're going to talk about failure, right? I'm Bridget. I run a nonprofit organization that focuses on ending childhood hunger. So why would somebody that needs to raise money for a living get up and talk about failure? It's crazy. But I had breakfast with a dear friend a couple months ago, and he helped me realize that this is a story that needs to be shared. That this is a story that resonates deeply with me and may resonate deeply with many of you too. In 2008, I got a voicemail, and it was so powerful, I had to listen to it 167 days in a row. And it went just like this. Hi, Bridget. My name is Sarah. I'm a second grade teacher at Kelloggsville Elementary School. I think we might have talked before, I'm not sure. I think we're on like your waiting list or something. Anyway, I am calling because we really, really need your services. I have kids in my classroom and they are so hungry. They are dealing with such poverty. I don't know if you know this, but the GM plant is around the corner and that's just closed, and we have so many families who've lost their jobs. And Bridget, I can't teach and my kids can't learn because they're hungry. And I heard you guys are providing this service where meals come every day. End of day meals, they come every day. We really, really need this. Is there anything that you can do for us? Poverty in my classroom, it's rampant. I can't do my job. My second graders can't learn. But today, Bridget, today was the icing on the cake. I was in the cafeteria line with my little second graders. And there was a little girl in my class, and her name is Katie. She's so sweet. And she was in the cafeteria line, and when she got to the end, she started taking handfuls of ketchup and stuffing the ketchup in her pockets. And I walked up to her, and I was like, Katie, what's up with the ketchup? What's going on? And she looked up at me. She had tears in her eyes. She said, I hope it's okay. We have no food at home. When I get enough ketchup, me and my grandma can make tomato soup. Is that okay? Bridget, this is the poverty I'm dealing with in my classroom. There's nobody else that's doing what you do. We really, really need your help. What can you do for us? Please, call me back. She hung up. I listened to that voicemail 167 days in a row. Because I promised myself, if Katie can't eat, I can't breathe. If Katie can't eat, I'm not comfortable. I needed to remember Katie every single day. I needed to think about her every single day, and I needed to work as hard as I possibly could to make sure that she didn't have to suffer from that kind of hunger. 167 days it took. 167 days it took to raise enough money to be able to serve her school. 167 days. Thankfully, we're still serving her school today. When I was Katie's age, I was 8, we moved from Pittsburgh to Detroit. And when we moved to Detroit, one of my most distinct memories, very first distinct memories, is of this line between Grosse Pointe Park and Detroit. And if you've ever been there, you know exactly what I'm about to tell you, right? On one side of a traffic light, the lawns are manicured, the houses are enormous, everybody's happy. And on the other side of this traffic light, this is in the late 80s, buildings are crumbling down, houses are falling apart, houses are burned, people are living on the streets, poverty is clear and present, people are hungry. It was horrible. And I was scared and worried. I was 8. So I asked my parents, what's happening here? And they weren't shy about teaching me about social inequity, about systemic racism, about institutionalized poverty. And that's why there was so much poverty. And I made it my goal. I made it my life's work. As an 8-year-old, I decided this is what I would do. I would work for the dignity of every human being. I would work to make sure that no one ever had to suffer that kind of poverty. I wanted to work so hard so no one ever had to be hungry. No one ever had to suffer the effects of hunger. So, when I was a senior at Aquinas College, 2002, and had this amazing opportunity to be able to be at the very beginnings of this incredible organization where every single weekday we would deliver healthy, nourishing meals to kids who really needed it right here in our community. When I had that opportunity, it was amazing. It was like a dream come true. This is everything I wanted to do. And so we got started. I was young, I was very naive, and I was very idealistic, which, if you're looking to start something, that's a phenomenal combination. It's true. And so we got started with what at the time I called seed money, which was actually $3,000 bucks. Really exciting. And we started off serving kids in 2 different schools, 125 children, each and every weekday. I was the only staff. We had about 5 to 7 volunteers, depending on the day. And we had a big vision. Sky was the limit. We thought we could do anything. So right off the bat, 3 things started happening when we started providing these meals to schools. The first one was this. We got all kinds of amazing feedback, incredible feedback. Teachers and parents and principals, they would call us and say, whoa, 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 this is amazing. Are you guys really gonna show up every single day with a sack dinner for all of our kids in the school? Is this really gonna happen? Okay, I got 5 more to add, I got 10 more to add, I have 15 more kids to add. Is this really gonna happen every day? And they would call, and teachers would tell us how the meals were actually transforming the very fabric of their classroom. Like that actually by having good, healthy, nourishing food, it made it easier for them to teach. Incredible, right? And so we were getting this amazing feedback, and these teachers they were like, okay, no, for real. Is this really coming every day? Because our kids are asking on the daily, are we gonna get our suppers today? Are we gonna get that brown bag today? Are we gonna get that food today? And the teachers were like, we didn't wanna tell them yes. We didn't wanna commit to it unless you're sure. And I was sure. Oh, sure. Absolutely, we're gonna come every single weekday throughout the school year and the summer, and you can count on us. Second thing that was happening is that teachers and principals talk to other teachers and principals at other schools. So we started getting all of these requests for services, like the voicemail I got from Sarah. My goodness, we got these voicemails and these phone calls, stories of poverty that I can never, ever unhear. Stories of need. Principals and teachers and parents who would call and leave us these voicemails on my cell phone, asking for our services and asking so desperately needed food in their classroom. But wow, what were we gonna do, right? We had such a small amount of money. And so I did what you do when you're looking for funds. I went to every philanthropist. I went to every nonprofit foundation. I went to every private foundation, every corporate foundation that I could get a meeting with. And I asked everyone to please fund us and please take a chance on Kids Food Basket because wow, it's really gonna do some amazing work and it's transforming classrooms. And I got the same response over and over and over again, which is, and I get that, I get it. And the response was, come back when you're sustainable. You're a one-person operation with a $20,000 budget. Come back when you're sustainable. Come back when you have proven impact. Come back when you've proven your model. And that was tough to hear. It was tough to get a lot of doors shut in our faces. But at the same time, I still understand we hadn't proven our impact. We hadn't proven our model. We had something that was very new. And again, we were very, very idealistic. And so, what do you do with that? What do you do with that? I kept getting these phone calls and requests for services, and I suddenly felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I felt so alone. I felt like the only thing that stood between children who were hungry, who needed these meals every day, and the food that exists in plenty here in America, the only thing that stood between those two was me. What do you do? I'd committed to these schools. So I became a warrior. I became a linebacker. I didn't care about anything else but the schools that we were serving, the kids that we were serving, and the kids that were on that waiting list, which still haunts me to this day. I didn't care about anything else. I was a warrior. I would work all day, all night. Get up in the morning and I'd slice meat, big tubes of bologna, because that's all we could afford from the food bank, huge tubes of bologna. I'd slice bread. I'd work with our 5 to 7 volunteers and we'd make up these sack suppers. We'd deliver them to the schools. And then around 3 o'clock every day, I'd head out to the food bank, which is where we could purchase food at 16 cents a pound. That's how we made that $3,000 stretch, right? So I'd go to the food bank and I'd hang out there because that's when the trucks came in at 3 o'clock. And I'd make friends with all the employees there, hoping that they'd put some things aside for us. They did. I offered to babysit their children for free so that they would put things aside for us. I even dated the warehouse guy. Because I wanted his damn yogurt, okay? I did. It worked. Anyway. And all this time, we were succeeding in feeding kids, but still, the work was so hard. And I found myself only caring about this one thing, making sure that kids were fed. I certainly didn't care about myself. I certainly didn't care about my health. I spent my days eating energy bars, granola bars, fast food, junk food, gas station food, anything that would keep me from being hungry. Started getting hooked on energy drinks from morning all the way through the evening. And after I would come home from the food bank, I'd go straight to the office, and I'd research, and I'd write grants, and I'd research around grants, and I'd write grants, trying desperately to be able to raise some money. Research and write, and I'd stay up all night long. And I got addicted to these stimulants. I got addicted to these energy drinks and the NoDoz and the 5-hour energies, not the illegal kind of stimulants. Although that would make a great part of the story, right? Great part of the story. But I did. I got addicted to staying awake, and I got addicted to the work. I got addicted to the impact. I got addicted to the need. There was nothing that was more important. Certainly not my body. I never worked out, never exercised. I didn't care. I didn't care. I felt like there was a part of me that was just invincible, right? Because the work I was doing was so noble that, like, I was fine. There wasn't anything that was going to hurt me. My health was great. I wasn't going to worry about it. But this whole time, I was neglecting my body. And then, after years of this, years, I started to not feel quite like myself. There's something off. Something was wrong. But I ignored it. I ignored it because we had so much work to do. We had schools on our waiting list, and we had these phone calls that kept coming in, and my gosh, I didn't have time for that. So then, 2012, I had a baby. And if you've ever had a baby, you know that issues that you push under the rug come to the surface. Oftentimes, they don't just come to the surface, they explode. And that's what happened. And I got very sick. And I was diagnosed at that point with 2 autoimmune diseases. 2 autoimmune diseases that probably had come on my own. But you know what? Ignored it. I didn't have time for that. Who has time for that, right? We have over 20 schools on our waiting list for services. We're at the end of the recession. You know, we've got a Muskegon program that we're starting, and Muskegon Heights has the highest dropout rate in the entire state of Michigan. Those kids need our services, and they need them now. Holland, we had a Holland program that we wanted to start, and scores of schools and thousands of kids that needed our services. Nobody's got time for an autoimmune disease, much less 2. So I ignored it. The one thing that I did do 2012 was I finally realized that we needed more leadership. We needed more people who are making this organization great every day, and I made one of the best decisions of my career by bringing on a brilliant leadership team and a brilliant associate director. And that has made all the difference. Because in 2015, I had another baby. And at the same time, my husband was sent to India on a very long project. In fact, he was sent to India 11 times in 14 months. So here I was with a newborn, with a toddler, running a $5 million organization. I was alone, very alone. And I got very sick. When you have autoimmune diseases, your body gets very inflamed. It affects your brain. It affects all of your organs. Things get inflamed. Your body attacks itself. I got very, very sick. There was one point I had trouble writing my name. There was a time that I had trouble reading. There was times that my brain just felt like an empty shell. My head felt like an empty shell on top of my body. Like nothing in there was working. And I made the decision that this wasn't working. And I finally saw a doctor. And after a variety of tests, this doctor sat me down and he said, "Bridget, we gotta talk about this. Let's talk about your inflammation markers. When you're at 60, you're sick. When you're between 200 and 400, you're really sick and you need medical intervention. You're at 1,200 And if you don't do something now, you're going to die. I saw another doctor. Right? Wouldn't you? I was like, whatever. But I was pretty sick. Got the same results. Saw another doctor. But this doctor did an ultrasound and told me that 90% of one of my vital organs had been destroyed, and that I needed to be dependent on medication for the rest of my life just to live. Scary. I asked her why. What in the world could have caused this? And she told me years of stress on the body, years of neglecting my body, years of eating really crappy food and not paying attention to my health, years of neglecting autoimmune diseases. And in that moment, I had the greatest realization of my life, that I had been performing the greatest of ironies over the past 13 years. While I worked day in and day out to prevent the irreparable effects of undernourishment on children, while I worked to prevent the irreparable effects of childhood hunger, I was causing irreparable damage to my own body. Greatest of ironies. And I realized that I had failed myself. I had failed my body. I failed my husband, who has to pick up all the slack, and who truly has lived out the vow in sickness and in health. I failed my children, who had to deal with a sick mother. Sometimes I failed my teammates. But after all of that, I am so proud of where we've come as an organization. I'm so proud of the work that we do. I'm so proud of the fact that each and every weekday we serve 7,500 children at 42 schools in 3 different counties each and every weekday, and I'm so incredibly proud of that. But at what cost? To myself. What I've learned through this work is that when you're in the nonprofit sector, when you're in human services, when you serve our world's most vulnerable, the work is never done. The work is never done. Every single day, I say to myself at night, did I do enough? Did I get enough done? Should I have done more? I think about those thousands of kids, the thousands of kids that are on our wait list for services. I think about them every single day, and that is my burden. That is what I work for. But you know, people always say to us, don't you want to work yourself out of a job? Don't you want to work yourself out of a job? Yeah, absolutely. But what I've learned is not in this lifetime. It's not going to happen in this lifetime, because our work is never done. Ever since the beginning of time, ever since the beginning of mankind and womankind, there have been people who have more resources and people who have less resources. And when you work in this industry, your job is to connect the two, and that work is never done. But the work is good, and the work is noble, and the work is pure, and the work is righteous. But you guys, sometimes the work is killing us. Sometimes our work is killing us. It's killing me. So we have to ask ourselves this question. In order to truly change the world, in order to truly be the change we wish to see in the world, must we work ourselves to death? Thank you.
sweetheart. I know you think he's the one, but it's just the start. It's just the first time a boy got into your heart, sweetheart. I know every time he says your name, the butterflies start to go. And you can't explain the magic that you feel when he holds you close. I know when he says forever, remember, forever is longer than football games and Friday nights, bonfires and backboard drives. There's more than your first chance for a first kiss and a slow dance. You don't see it when you're 17, but that don't mean it ain't everything, sweetheart. Go on forward, but don't lose your sweetheart. You should know you got a lot of time to figure out if it's love, take it slow. 'Cause there's some things in life you can't get back once you let them go. You should know when he says forever, remember, forever is longer than football games and Friday nights, bonfires and backboard drives. There's more than your first chance for a first kiss and a slow dance. You don't see it when you're 17, but that don't mean it ain't everything, sweetheart. Go on forward, but don't lose your sweetheart. Ooh. Sweetheart, if it comes crashing down and he tears your world apart, remember that you're beautiful. It won't always be this hard, sweetheart. And when he says forever, remember, forever is longer than a broken heart and a long goodbye, breakup songs and the tears you cry. There's more than your first chance for a first kiss and a slow dance. You don't see it when you're 17, but that don't mean it ain't everything, sweetheart. Go on forward, but don't lose your sweetheart. I know you think he's the one, but it's just the start.
When I was 28 years old, I decided to climb Mount Sinai in Egypt and ask God what I should do with my life. After all, I was told and I believed that God had a plan for my life, like a very special plan. You know, plans for me to prosper and fly like an eagle or something like that. And I thought, all right, Sinai, if God once broke God's silence on this mountaintop, maybe something would happen again. You know, I wasn't looking for, tablets of stone or even like a thunderous voice, but like a hint, a clue, something that I was on the right track and that my life meant something. And also, I was living in Israel at the time. I was going to graduate school, and I was living there with my wife and a 2-year-old, and I wanted to know, should I stay on for more education? Should I go back home to the church world that I had left? What should I do? And Israel, I was a weird place. It was a time of upheaval. I don't know, a kind of spiritual upheaval. One morning I might be standing right where Jesus stood, which felt sort of good, like, hey, well, at least near enough. And in the afternoon, I might be at the mall picking up my Army-issued gas mask because of the war with Iraq near the shoe store, which was odd. And I was unsure. I felt a kind of uncertainty in my life. And as genuinely as I could, I turned in good faith toward this mountain, toward Sinai, to ask God for some help. And I meant it sort of with all the sincerity that I could conjure up. Just help me. And I set about toward Sinai, and this was sort of prearranged because I had took a graduate course on Egypt that ended with a climb to the very top of Mount Sinai at night for the sunrise. And I thought, this is it. And I was reading in the Torah, and it said, prepare yourself, deny yourself today and tomorrow, and on the third day, I will appear to you. And I thought, this is it. I'm going to take the Bible literally, even though I was learning in class, maybe not the best idea, but I thought, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to deny myself, I'm going to fast for 2 days, and then I'm going to climb to the top of Mount Sinai, and I'm going to pray with everything I have just for a little nudge, a little hint. So our professor had arranged a kind of special way to get to Sinai, which sounded awesome at first. He said, we're traveling by Land Rover. And these are like old school Land Rovers, like Indiana Jones kind of Land Rovers. And we pile in the back a bunch of students on these bench seats facing one another. And at first, the first half an hour is totally awesome. And we're like jerking and swaying. And it's the Land Rovers are being driven by Bedouin. And at a certain point, an hour goes by, and an hour and a half goes by, and our enthusiasm is waning. And one student hits her head on the ceiling, and I'm pounding on the side, and I'm yelling at the Bedouin to slow down, and they're just lighting cigarettes and giving us the thumbs up. And it's getting late in the afternoon, and people are starting to talk about food, and we stop, and the Bedouin have this like desert spread with their bread and their tea, and they're welcoming us, except I'm fasting. And I have to pretend that like I'm not feeling that well and I need to go for a walk and I'm over here because I don't want anyone to know that I'm fasting because otherwise it won't work, is what I thought. God will say, I was going to show up, but then, people found out about your fast and it just doesn't work that way. And I did manage with like great spiritual power to not eat during lunch. And we climbed back into the Land Rovers, and I thought, surely we'll be there soon. And the hours ticked by, and evening was approaching, and everyone at this point, especially the Americans, all they were talking about was food. At least that's all I heard. And we get to the hotel at the base of Mount Sinai, and the students rush out and go straight into the dining hall. They don't even grab their bags, and I just cannot help myself. I go straight into the buffet line, and I grab a plate, and I start eating in line like a spiritual slob, thinking, I don't know, maybe I can make amends with God on the way up. So I stagger back to my room, and at this point I'm feeling, deflated, and sort of wondering what I'm doing here. And the alarm goes off at 3 a.m., and I walk outside, and it's cold, and it's clear, and I remember why I'm here, and I put my coat on, and I grab my prayer book. I had this like Hebrew English book of Psalms because I was also kind of secretly in love with Judaism, and I tucked that into my jacket and started to climb with resolve to the top of Mount Sinai. And I realized within the first few hundred feet, this is not exactly what I imagined. I thought I'd be like a lonely monk, sort of just ascending in silence. But I was on a trail, and I started passing Russian women in high heels and Asian tourists taking photos, and the Bedouin were back. And this time, they were asking if I wanted a camel ride. You, my friend, it's too far. Camel ride, take a camel ride, don't walk. And I want to get past these people as fast as possible, so I'm hiking and walking as fast as I can, and I'm sweating, even though it's very cold. And I realize after about an hour that this is like a serious climb. This isn't like just a walk up to the top of Mount Sinai. And I'm starting to get very cold, and I'm thinking about all the clothes I should have brought, which are back in the hotel room. And at one point I stop, and I can feel my body shaking, and I can't make it stop. I'm just shivering. And I look down in the moonlight, and in a little crevice, I see a ski hat wedged in there, nasty and covered with dust, and I don't care. And I reach down, and I pull it out, and I shake the thing off, and I put it on my head, and I keep going, and I round the bend near the summit, and I can hear a hum. I'm not sure what this hum is, but I hear a hum. I'm like, what is that? And I come around the corner, and the Bedouin have set up tents with lights and a generator, and they're selling hot chocolate and Snickers bars, which I go straight in, I buy a hot chocolate, I eat a Snickers bar, and then for $10, I rent a blanket from a Bedouin so I can stay warm on the summit. And I wander out there with just a few people. And it is vast, and it is empty, and it is silent, and it is quiet, and there's no human habitation as far as you can see. And the sun begins to come up, and at the granite hilltops are the things that light up first with this orange fire. And I hear like some soft singing. The hundreds of people who had made the hike at night begin to sing a hymn. And it's very moving. And I begin to recognize the tune, and it's the Beatles' Here Comes the Sun. And I'm thinking, what in the hell am I doing up here? And then they start cheering as the sun comes up, like we had won something, and the crowds disperse, and I take out my book, my prayer book, and I open it up, and I'm by myself, and as simply as I can, I pray. I try the Hebrew because I think maybe that will work. Maybe God speaks Hebrew. I try the English, and I have nothing. I feel nothing. I think nothing. I don't know what I'm doing up here. I don't know what I'm even looking for up here. And I close the prayer book, and I have a kind of nothing feeling inside, almost a kind of numbness. And I turn, and I don't really know what to do. So I just start walking back down the trail by myself. I returned the $10 rented blanket and kind of round the bend beneath the summit, and there are these camels sitting there resting from their night of forced labor, taking lazy people up. And all these people had been walking by, and I'm just one of them. And I walk past this camel, and the camel's sitting down on the ground on his knees. And I walk past, and all of a sudden, he decides to swing his massive face around to the middle of the trail, and he goes straight for my face. And in the only moment of clarity I've had so far, I'm like a ninja. And I throw up my elbow, and I block the camel from biting me in the face, but now my elbow is in the very back of his throat. And his teeth are on my upper arm. and he begins to yank me back and forth like this. And I'm swinging back and forth like a dog with a chew toy, and I'm screaming, help, help, and there's nobody. There's nobody. There are no Bedouin. There are no people. I'm just completely alone, me and this camel. And I am cussing. I'm combining cuss words. I'm inventing cuss words. I said things that have never been said on Mount Sinai. I violate all the commandments, all in one fell swoop. And the only thing I can think of is with my left hand to punch the camel as hard as I can in the face. So I reach back and I swing, and he lets go. And I'm standing there, face to face, and eye to eye with this beast. And at this point, the whole world has stopped spinning. And the camel takes a breath and then spits snot all over my face. And I couldn't do it. I could not do it. I could not do it right. I couldn't fast. I couldn't pray. I couldn't believe. I couldn't find the real Jesus. I couldn't make sense of the Bible. I couldn't make sense of my own faith anymore. I thought that if I moved to the holy places, if I went to the Holy Land, if I climbed the holiest mountain and learned the holiest language and studied the holiest book, that at the end of all this, I'd have something real, some kind of contact with God, that my life would make sense, that there would be some kind of divine plan. But what happened to me is that everything I believed about God went away. It unraveled. And I couldn't put it back together again. And everything I thought I was supposed to believe about God stopped working. And inside, I felt like a kind of spiritual failure, like I was disappointing to myself. And I turned to walk down the mountain. And I had been trying so hard to be a spiritual person. I just wanted to be a spiritual guy. But instead, I was cold. I was alone. I had bruises on my arm. I had saliva on my face. And I just wanted to go home. But I didn't know what home was anymore. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. Before we bring out our final entertainer of the evening and all rush for another drink, I get the awesome opportunity to share a few words of thanks. So to the 6 brave souls who came out on stage tonight and shared such a powerful and personal message with us all, let's give them a round of applause. They're all behind that door drinking heavily. To the entertainers who graced the stage tonight and shared their talent with us all, let's give them a round of applause. And to the ever-growing list of partners that help move us forward. It's a long list, so I'm going to rip through them quick, and I ask that you please hold your applause till the end. So, thank you, Brian Kelly Photography and Film, Spectrum Health, Blue 35, and Wolverine Worldwide. Thank you, Meyer, for your ongoing support and your sponsorship of our live stream this evening. Thank you, Start Garden, for the work you do every day to help move our region forward. Thank you, 616 Developments and the Michigan Cider Association. And thank you to our first sponsor ever who's here with us tonight, the Hauenstein Center for Presidential Studies. And finally, thank you to Griffin Properties for your continued investment in our city's cultural and community events. Let's give them all a round of applause. I'm glad that all came out correctly. So, the last two notes of the night. You can visit failurelab.com and learn more about how you can bring this experience to your company, college, or conference. And it's 9:30. There's 3 cider companies next door ready to pour you a drink. So stick around, share your thoughts with a friend or a stranger, and thank a storyteller or an entertainer. And now, please welcome to the stage our final entertainer of the evening from Nashville, Tennessee, Northern Glass.
A house in New Orleans they call the rising sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy. And God, I know I'm one. We'll jeans. And my father was a gambling man down in New Orleans. Now the only thing that a gambler needs is a suitcase and a trunk. And the only time that he's satisfied is when he's on a drunk. Oh, mothers, tell your children not to do what I have done, to live your lives in sin and misery in the house of the rising sun. There is a house in New Orleans they call the rising sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy, and God